Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
If you're a fan of comic books and comic book conventions, Daytona Beach Comic Con needs to be on your list of must-attend events. It's a show that actually focuses on comic books. Imagine that! This year's event is happening on Saturday, September the 6th, and Sunday, September the 7th. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. If you find yourself in the Orlando area, and let's be honest, doesn't everyone come to Orlando for the House of Mouse? Head over to Coliseum of Comics to get your comic book fix. Be sure to check out their location on East Colonial Drive, where they carry a wide selection of independent comics, including Silverline books. Stop by and don't forget to tell them Silverline sent you. Hey, if you're an independent comic creator looking to get your comic printed, look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our comics and do a fantastic job. They can even print special edition covers. When you reach out to them, be sure to tell them Silverline sent you. Looking for a bold way to boost your business? Advertise with Silverline Comics, reaching readers across the U.S. and around the world. Affordable rates, passionate fans, and national and international exposure, all packed inside thrilling, action-packed comics. All ads must be PG-13, perfect for reaching all ages. Spots are limited. Grab your ad space today and become part of the adventure. Silverline Comics, where adventure lives and your brand thrives. Email us at silverlinepublishingllc@gmail.com for more information. And make mine Silverline.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kelber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to That's Silverline Show on Tuesday. I am your host, Tim TK, joined as always by Jose Fuentes.
Hey, everybody.
We got jump scared because Brent Larson also joined us during the to countdown.
Hi, everyone.
Very good. So we have a personal crew here tonight. Britton joining us, and David is currently setting up for San Diego Comic-Con, and Ron is currently feeling sick, so we wish Ron the best, and we wish David safety and quick, and a quick setup and tear down as he gets up.
Don't get trampled, buddy. Don't get trampled.
Yeah. But tonight we're going to be talking about comic gimmicks, signings, kind of how you as a creator can help market or add collectability to your book, as well as what you might do to get the most success out of a signing event. And so this is David's idea originally, so I have his original suggestion. And we would have liked to get his thoughts on this, but due to the way the scheduling is currently set up, we can start pushing it back to time when he's back here. However, I did bring in some visual examples for show and tell, and we'll be getting kind of straight into it. So first, gimmicks have kind of a weird rap in the comics industry because, well, they're fun for collectors. We love getting like the weird parts of our fandoms, the weird ways we can show off our personality through our collection, or the things we just think are dope and cool, because that's why a lot of us got into the fandom in the first place, because comics are dope and cool. However, at some point, the publishers decided to spend half their annual budget on gimmicks and nearly bankrupted the comics industry in the 90s. And thankfully, some great creative teams managed to create some great characters and some great storylines that renewed interest, drove up numbers. We had the rise of the anti-hero. And so there's a whole history there that perhaps we'll get into some of our thoughts for those that live through it or live through the outcome of that. But now I think we're kind of a good place, and we get a nice balance of gimmick to actual content in terms of what the publishers are putting out. So I'll kind of pass it off to you guys first. What are your general thoughts on gimmicks put out by publishers, foil covers, alternate covers, to some extent, store exclusives, things like that?
I don't give into those. Just kidding. I'm a sucker for them. I'll be honest. Like if there's a gimmick cover, I mean, I think that personally, I also think blank sketch covers are gimmick covers as well. Because I mean, yeah, you can still pick up the book, you can get somebody to draw on it or draw on it yourself, but I'm still picking up that book. I may not read that story, I may not read that particular book, but I'm gonna pick it up just on principle alone, just because it's a blank. But yeah, I'm a sucker for gimmick covers, man. Since the late 90s, I think, when they started having, was it Malibu, and they do the bullet cover.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, take my money.
I'm probably the opposite, because I am always going to go for who's writing the book. And I have been known to, I think, buy sketch covers just because I need the next chapter, and it's the only one I could find in the back issue bin. And now, having said that, of course, Kalis has had multiple, what are they called? Metallic ink covers, and I'm like, hey man, if that's your thing, then please, actually no, then I love them, and yes, everything.
Right. Yeah. Please let me take your money. Right. Yeah.
I'm trying to think, can writers do gimmicks? I'm sure they can. I think
they sure can. I think that does also come in when you're writing in a bigger publishing house, and crossover events are, I guess, by nature a writing gimmick, right?
I suppose you're right.
Yeah, I mean, they can be done well, which is like if you get something like what happened with Uncanny X-Men and X-Men last year, where they did the raid on Grey Malkin, where the two writers knew each other, and they kind of pitched the idea to the editor of like, hey, we're gonna both write this arc that ends with the two teams meeting at Grey Malkin, and we'll pass the torch back and forth on that.
That's cool. That's a cool idea.
Yeah. And so you can
one.
Yeah, it's a fun arc.
Now that I think about it, writers are actually all about gimmicks. We'll do anything to try to present ourselves as hyper clever, and actually any writer, books, comics, TV shows, movies, anything to make you think the writer is really smart. So I suppose it's all gimmicks now that I think about it. So
yeah, that's also where you get some like the behind the scenes things, or the story of like we'll do like the story of how this was created. Staying on the train, X-Men, X-Force are all really on that, because with the success of House of X, where Marvel realized it's great if you just let the writers write what they want to do. Where they
take note, writers always write, and they are right.
So what they did with the current run of comics is they accepted pitches from people like, hey, we want to hear what you want to write with these characters, these teams we have set up in the editorial bay, and if we like it, it's yours, run with it. And so at the end of the issues, you have things where you have letters to the writer, and the writer will respond to it. So in X-Force, there's talking about how he created the idea of a team led by Forge, and what that looks like when Forge is deciding to become the man on the wall for the X-Men team. Or they'll talk about the creating the idea of the raid on Grey Malkin, or these other things.
Do you know who it is?
Let me pull that up, actually. in my handy dandy Marvel Unlimited app, not a sponsor, just something I pay for. There you go.
Always looking for new writers to jump on board with.
Yeah, I will say, the current X-Force run is actually one of my favorites for a while with the brand. Issue details. That is currently being written by Jeffrey
from a
Thorne.
writer, just so you guys know.
Exactly. Yeah. I just, I had a 10-hour workday yesterday. I'm coming off of 9 today. It's.
I got you. Okay, so who was it written by?
It was written by Jeffrey Thorne, Gail Simone. Runtime readers of the show will know my neighbor is currently writing Uncanny X-Men. And Jed McKay, who's quite seasoned, is doing X-Men.
Okay.
And so the kind of those 3 titles, and they're kind of all the point where the editorial bay had come up with, like, at the end of Fall of X, here's where the teams fall, here's who's kind of aligned with each other. What would you do with it? And they fielded responses from their selection of writers, and that's how we got the current lineup and where they're going. And with how much levity they gave, or how much freedom they gave Hickman with House of X, Powers of X, and then Uncanny X-Men in that run, and seeing how it paid off and how consistent those stories were, and now that same level of consistency that you don't necessarily get in other titles that are forced to cross over so frequently. It's very consistent. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. More so than the one World Under Doom storyline, even though that is fun. But yeah.
Huh. Okay.
So that a writer gimmick would be something like that. Like this was a joke we passed around back on Wednesday Wham forever ago, but the idea of what if we did a Wolf Hunter and Kalis crossover because they're both spies set in our world, right?
That would have been cool, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could that be some time travel going on in that? Aren't they set in different time periods?
Well, Kalis has in his past that he was actually a spy for OSS. What my investigations into the historical narrative found out was that Germany was never hugely interested in a nuclear program, an atomic bomb program. So I had Scott Anders investigate that, if only so that he didn't find anything. And he's like, well, that was a big waste of time. So, but I could see him rubbing elbows with a different spy.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the idea, right? Is that Germany wasn't big in bombs until they got definitive proof that the U.S. had one, and that's when they started the Heavy Water Project. But then the British Airborne and the Finnish, the British Airborne and the Swedish saboteurs blew them up.
By then they weren't really manufacturing anything.
The main thing that Germans had was the Wunderwaffen program, which is just V2 rockets and fighter jets.
But I mean, and how that you've I know this is off topic, but hey, we're talking about whatever we want. You know, when they have superheroes meet up in a random thing, and you're like, oh, hey, what's up? Oh, hey, I love your work. Cool, really? I love how you go snicked and you chop those guys. Oh yeah, all right. Well, hey, I gotta go, and then they leave, and it's like, oh, what about? I like covers where there is some kind of formative event that happens, even if it's not going to stick around too long because it is comics, but where there's some kind of gravity that they take with them and throughout the rest of their travels or whatever. So,
that's something I think you can have really good throwaway scenes, but the throwaway scenes need to in some way impact the narrative going forward or explain something. And so I kind of think of that the Obadiah. I use this when we talked about the art of writing throwaway lines, and also this will also tie in one question from the audience, which is favorite MCU movie, and also what is a writer gimmick. So going to Iron Man 1, which I think still holds a special place in my heart, although Thunderbolts is really good. Is has that throwaway scene where Obadiah Stane, where they're having this argument thing, and someone says, it's like, we can't, like, trying to build saying, Obadiah Stane says, Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps, and he says, well, I'm not Tony Stark. And we get the entire reasoning for why Tony Stark has created this arc correct and why this happens. It's because he is. That's, we get a storyline that adds gravity and gravitas to the character of Tony Stark. But in reality, it's probably something that the writer came up with, like, on a whim. It's like, I'm going to write like half a page of dialogue, and that's.
Well, when you're writing that kind of stuff, you have to, especially in movies, you have to really be mindful of how much mileage you on the script. So that I could have seen that conversation actually be a scene, and the director or whoever was in charge at the time was like, yeah, this takes too long and it's too expensive. See if we can do it in a way that conveys the information and is really interesting, but is also very easy to shoot in. So I will say, and we just got that question about what are your favorite MCU movies. Especially the Russo brothers were really good about grabbing character scenes, not necessarily arcs, because you had ensemble casts. They were able to grab scenes that were very character defining without having spent a lot of time on them. I remember I love the scene in Infinity War where had the Vision and the Scarlet Witch together. I mean, they didn't really have a lot of time to build their relationship, and I'm a huge fan of both of theirs from the 80s. But I loved that they managed to really sum up how they felt about each other, the stresses on their relationship, because they're kind of on opposite sides of the whole Civil War thing. And yet it makes you, the audience, love them more. That's really tight writing. So
it kind of hits on a couple different tropes that in particular that movie that I think you have to be really proficient with as a writer to when you get to the point of I'm going to make a thing of this. One of them being is the knowing how to pace and knowing how to insert character moments, because no one wants to read 22 pages of fight scene. Like, even if you do like the fully signed comics, like if it's a really good fight scene, maybe, but usually you need to have, before that, you need to have 3 to 4 issues of setting that up, and then you can have and then that's when you have the new X-Men versus Apocalypse, or versus Exodus and the Apostles, and then you can have that fight going through the laboratory all the way to the end, right? But you need to have that moment where Vision and Wanda are in their living room watching the news in their like apartment in Avengers Tower, and the kind of that real, like, almost human moment of how do they visit each other? What is their dynamic like? One of them is currently under house arrest. How does that affect how they view each other, or anything like that? And you can convey that in 5 to 10 lines and a news broadcast happening in the background.
Yeah, anything you can do to make your audience feel something for your characters is a huge win. So there are so many movies out there, and frankly so many comics that are interesting at best, but if I don't feel anything, then I feel like it's a waste of time. So
I mean,
that's how I felt about Man of Steel, basically. So
Man, so great to watch, not a whole lot to feel on, and then you see 2025 Superman, and you're like, Jonathan Kent is making me cry in the theater.
Instead of just annoying me, he's great.
The burritos are still good. I mean, and that was and kind of getting to that, to an extent of that, talking about writing, as an artist, Jose probably has a lot of ways he can gimmick his marketing his comics of how he can do things at signings, how he can do things online, right? Like it's very easy for a visual artist to create a compelling Instagram account to sell comics or to create their own like unique art or original art and sell that in order to cross promote themselves and their comics. As a writer, you could write a short story, but that's creating a publication that then you have to market and resell yourself to another publisher. But we have this idea of we can create our own content and talk about writing, talk about how the sausage is made, because writing is one of those arts that is, easy to enter, hard to master. And so being able to have this conversation and put it online and then put it in people's eardrums and then they can share it on podcast services around the world. This is in itself a gimmick for writers to promote ourselves and to promote our work. Even Brandon Sanderson does it, and the man is currently the messiah of prose. So,
Listen, as an artist, I'm not above begging. Please buy my books.
Yeah.
Please buy the books we've worked on. Buy my art, please. Please.
Yeah.
I mean, I've offered for Tim to body slam Pete through a table at a show.
I'm still down. Yeah.
So,
I'm even wearing my one of my WWE shirts, one of my mini WWE shirts. I went through off of the Wild Simone School of Wrestling when I was living in Orlando, so I can do it in a way that will protect Pete.
You wanted him to do this in order to somehow sell more of your stuff?
If someone bought the entire run of some of the books that we had and whatnot, then Tim would body slam Pete through a table.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we had a thing going on at that particular Tampa Bay con, or if anyone bought one of every comic at the Silverline complex or cleared out one of our tables.
Right.
Now I'm wondering, like, were they your tables or were they?
I mean, they were the tables we were given, and for the record, we didn't necessarily sign off on it, but we promoted for it anyway.
It's from a retro center somewhere. They're used to it. Yeah.
Right.
That's great. Somebody got bottomless slammed on one of our tables again. Man, didn't they sign a waiver?
Yeah.
I will say, at that show, I met this artist, this kid named Nick, and he came up and just asked me and Pete just a ton of questions about the Kubert School, right? And just because he really wanted to go there, asked us all kinds of questions. I was very straightforward. I was like, listen, if you are going there thinking you're going to get a job on Marvel right away, it's not going to happen. Like, just not to burst your bubble, but like, and if you think you're going to go in there and instantly be amazing, it's a grind. Like our first week, we had to have pages done. Like it's a grind the whole way through, and I loved it. Right. Mm-hmm. I saw him again at SuperCon this weekend. He came out to see me, and he's like, listen, that stuff that you told me that we had talked about and whatnot, like things got a little rough, in my first year and stuff like that. I just kept thinking about what you had said to me, and it really did help me get through. I told my wife that it was Saturday. I told my wife, I'm like, you know what? Today's a success. I don't care if I sell any more books. Like, this is literally a success for me because
that's cool. Huh.
That's awesome.
That's kind of getting into it then, like the signing itself is kind of this weird gimmick, and like I've done one at a few stores where you as a writer come in, you sign a bunch of comics that get put up on the shelf, and then also if people come with my stuff, you'll sign it for them.
Right.
And tied to that, and with like con presence, having a table. If you're an artist at a con, usually that's kind of more the standard fare because you can do your own art as well and do sketches and actually try to make your money back. Or if you're a writer, it can be kind of a rough go. But then you have certain in-presence gimmicks like body slamming Pete through table or bringing out cosplayers and things like that, and just trying to create more of a visual spectacle around what you're doing. Or we've had talk about like the other writers who have done haikus for people who come by. We're like, hey, come by my table. I'm going to write you a haiku, and hopefully convince you the same.
I have a friend that does that.
Yeah.
I have a writer friend, my friend Nick, that runs Pickle Press. He does haikus at his table. He's, you know what I mean? He'll set up all the books and whatnot. And yeah, he'll do haikus for people. Like I'm just now learning and starting to get into doing remarks with Posca markers on the covers and whatnot. Like I wasn't sure if it was something I was gonna want to do, but I've done a few, and it was pretty cool. Like all my obsoletes covers.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
And so you take, the regular comic, you know what I mean, the regular cover, and people will ask for remarks, and you usually charge a couple bucks or whatever, and I usually do a light, like you can kind of sort of see the pencil slightly through it, and then you go over with like Posca acrylic markers, or I say Poscas, but like any acrylic markers, and you go over and do a quick little like brighter sketch on top of the cover, usually using like white as your base and whatnot, and yeah, people are actually pretty kind of into it.
Yeah. I know one thing I've done a couple times where as a writer I will, and my thing is I will do at smaller cons where you don't necessarily have the big pros who come through and do portfolio reviews. I will do a portfolio review or a script review or like edits or what have you, where people come by and like want to like. Usually, if you're a writer at a con and you don't have a table, you're there trying to like either make connections or do whatever. So I kind of take that into my control and do the business backwards of I will review kind of whatever you brought with you or what you have, and
right,
and if you're at the table, I'm going to be going over stuff with you and talking about how the sausage is made. And hopefully, my superior intellect will convince you that you should buy my writing.
Right. Like, do you like what I said? Buy my book.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if that's ever worked on me. Buying books at cons is hard. Just like, there's a part of you that's like, I want to help this guy out. And there's another part of you that's like, I don't know this person anything. And yet, when I'm sitting behind, I'm like, oh, I want you to buy my stuff because it's good. And because by buying it, you will help me out. So, yeah, it's there's some psychology going on there. I think it ages me a little bit, which is why I don't do a lot of cons.
That's
right. How keen are you guys on doing swaps? Like if there's a self-publishing creator, across the way, you've been having to stare at them, the entire convention. You're like, okay, I want to see what they're about and whatnot. So have you swapped books?
Yeah, that's the reason why Wolf Hunter is currently in the Scout office. Got connected with their editor. Also, I got connected with the one of the artists who does Transformers for IDW. He did the covers for the Dinosaur Planet, whatever arc thing. And so I got connected with him at one con, and we swapped. And then we just kind of like on the Sunday where it was dead, we just hung out all day and talked about stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Huh. I've never done that before.
Really?
I've
done it a couple times.
No one was interested. I don't know. Yeah. Yes. Is there a better way to take it? I don't know. Huh. Are you guys going to be at Daytona this year?
Yes. That's the plan.
I've not received an invite, so I don't know. Probably not.
Right. Okay. Maybe I should be looking at people across the way. Usually
I know
Rasmus, who played, he was like an actor who played Aquaman and wanted photos, and I was like, I'm not gonna swap my comics for a photo.
Right. Well, was it the year that we both were there? Alex Saviak was in front of us, and Jeff was there. Jeff Whiting was in front of us as well.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Last time I was at Rose City, I met Pauly Shore.
No kidding.
I don't know, because he was there as like a guest of honor. He was doing they're doing like on their movie day. He was there talking about like his career on the panels. But then he was also walking the floor because he's a nerd.
Right.
He started looking at the stuff at Mad Cave when I was there. And I'm like, You're Pauly Shore. He's like, yeah, I'm buying this one.
That's pretty cool. Huh. Wow. Was he pretty cool in real life?
Yeah, he's chill, dude. It's kind of surreal. I'm like, all right, Encino Man, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh. Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Like, man,
but
was it that would be dope. I'm just saying that would be cool. Like,
yeah. So speaking of gimmicks that have worked on me and things you can do both as a creator, like visually, and I guess also as a writer, because creating the concept is to create a concept that is uniquely tied to an existing niche subculture, other thing. And of course, being a metalhead, the DC Comics Death Knight's death metal.
nice.
Catches the light very nicely.
Yes. So I got the deluxe edition, which of course has the special wrapping on the sleeve. So you get not just one, but two alternate covers.
Oh,
Where you have the Batman who laughs on what is like the Slayer stage from hell, with the Justice League playing, instruments on the background.
Huh. Okay.
nice.
And then you have, of course, it's a deluxe edition, so that means you get the sketches and the art on the inside and the. Try and find something here. Like you get the signed interiors and all that fun stuff.
So that car salesman got you. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes. So yeah, 100%. So that's one of the things where like it's a great visual gimmick because it's the covers are dope, the interiors are dope, and as well as it includes a bunch of like cool visual stuff and then notes from the editor and everything in the back as well. But also just the concept, like giving Scott Snyder his roses, the idea of tying DC, like making a 80s panel van metal themed
right
DC storyline. Yeah.
Rory.
It speaks to me. Rory's a jet. So very dark and perhaps polar opposite to the current Superman movie, but it's still, it got me hooked, and it's actually a really good storyline too. But the theming of it all, the visual motifs,
I feel that the death metal arc for DC Comics, and I'm a DC guy, right?
Yeah.
But I feel that arc ran forever. I thought it was going to end, and then they picked it back up again. I was like, wait,
yes.
What just happened?
Well, they did, yeah, because they did they tightened up a couple of things where they did DC Comics metal, DC heavy metal, DC death metal, and I thought it was kind of a cool escalation. But it was one of those things where like, I'm getting this in collected editions. I'm not trying to follow every single floppy and side issue. Yeah,
I don't know.
That was me for War of the Gods. I got every floppy for War of the Gods.
Yeah.
So DC did some heavy metal book. Is that what you were showing us? I don't.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, DC had.
I love you, Brett.
DC had a 2-year-long storyline that was all like metal themed, where they tied there's theming that's tied to like the metal elements that are tied to the creation of the multiverse and all that stuff, but it was all themed around.
And they brought alternate Batman merged with other DC characters that became bad guys and whatnot. Yeah.
Okay. And we got zombie Jonah Hex in there, which is sick.
That's right.
But yeah, it was the writing gimmick is, of course, we're making death metal the genre also something tied into the fabric of the DC universe. And then the visual gimmick is what if we made all of our characters' costumes look like either musicians from the 80s or like things you'd see on like album covers or like Frazetta art kind of.
Like Iron Maiden type stuff.
Yeah.
And
okay.
You just know, right? You just gotta know Greg Capullo had like the best time.
For sure.
Huh. Okay. That's pretty cool.
Speaking of weird thing, I was at Ren Fair a couple weeks ago, and one of the cosplayers there was dressed up as Frazetta's Berserker.
Nice.
The guy with the horns and I'm like, that is a deep cut. I like.
Huh.
But yeah, it's kind of a gimmick on all levels, but in the way that I think works. Spinal Tap's great, yeah. That's one of those things where I was interested in reading it because, like, I don't read a whole lot of DC outside of main events or like Lantern stuff. But as one's like, oh, this is an event that is very much up my alley because it's one of my favorite genres of music. And then I saw the deluxe edition with the cool covers and the art on the interior. I'm like, oh, all right, that's a
Right. They had you at foil cover.
Yeah.
Give me your money. Yes, sir.
Speaking of foil cover, of course, we talked about Kalis has one, and Wolf Hunter has a foil cover, so those two, which you can get only through the pre-order window. Yeah. One
of the cool things that at Silverline does is with the crowdfund, we have, we do the foil covers. Like, so far that I've been a part of Silverline, we'll do 3 covers, like 3 different covers, and cover A is always the one that gets the foil, and I don't think I've seen one that hasn't been amazing yet.
Yeah, it's all great. It's great work from the artist, great work from the team at picking it. I love them all. And my contribution as a writer to try and gimmick it up is because I have a very specific setting and theming and picking for Wolf Hunter is something we'll talk about as I'll talk about the history of what happened and what it's based off of right. The real life history of German spies in England and the fact that Winston Churchill eventually was recruited when people were like, all right, your job now is to stay here and hunt down Nazis.
Yeah, it's funny. I've heard that some really good advice I've heard is as a writer, you should just write what you would want to read, which is funny because I actually enjoy a good gimmick every once in a while. Or if something is meta all of a sudden, just for a little while, okay, I can take that. Or if there's a nod to or an inside joke or something, that I'm cool with that. I don't know if I'm cool with it for very long, but I guess that's the nature of the gimmick. So
yeah, I think also you can definitely tell when the gimmick is done because the writer sees something happening and Zeitgeist says I can add on to that or I can do that better. Versus when an editor comes to a writer and says I need you to use this as a thing. You can definitely tell when it's a writer having fun with it versus when a writer is being tasked with this as part of their job in the bullpen.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Because I think the heavy metal and death metal series, I want to say that's something that kind of came out of nowhere because I don't think anywhere else in the Zeitgeist were we having an Iron Maiden revival in terms of art. I think it was just Snyder and Capullo being like, guys, hear me out.
Yeah, it's time.
Right.
Yeah, I imagine how many really good. I work with a bunch of creatives just trying to keep them creative. And what's weird is their best work is when they're doing stuff that they're just like, wouldn't this be cool? As opposed to sit down and think of something cool. So, but something that no one's really looking for, but you just think is cool. Weirdly enough, that goes over pretty well with finding an audience. So it's almost like they can smell something that's, even if it's not perfect, if you're trying to do something new, already they're a little bit interested, so it helps.
Yeah, definitely it's one of those things where kind of go back to the MCU since I brought up earlier, but the Captain America: Brave New World, as cool as Harrison Ford is in anything, as a movie, you can definitely tell that was something that was in there by design because it needed to happen because that's what was on the planning sheet for the next 5 years. And we have some moments. Timothy Blake Dalton is great and everything, and so is Harrison Ford. But other than that, I'm like, all right. Reshoots are egregious and whatever. But then you get something like Ironheart, which is something they were planning on doing, but they didn't. Were just kind of fielding whatever for it. And then Shanika Hodge, who creates the treatment for that, is a hip hop artist. She's not necessarily like a full-time screenwriter. Like she comes from like writing like prose and hip hop and stuff like that. And so she's like, I really like the Ironheart character. Here's my take on it. And you can feel the heart in that show, like the way they like give her a lot more like character moments and personality and their interactions with the Hood. And like I'm currently watching it right now, so it's fresh in the mind. That's what I'm talking about it. And also MCU got brought up earlier, so what have you. But that moment where and kind of to Roy's point as well, as the writer, you're the art director, and also in cases if you're like the showrunner, you're the director, but you're the art director, you're handling cinematography, you have to frame each shot. And so kind of comparing those two things, where Ironheart, we have a lot of practical effects because of the time they take to care about this. And then Captain America Brave New World, where they are literally like, was supposed to be shot in Japan, but instead they had to settle for DC. And then you have this terrible green screen with Anthony Mackie chalking up to Red Hulk. You're like, what is happening?
Oh, no.
And taking moments to take time to actually breathe through the characters and let them interact versus just Anthony Mackie throws a one-liner, Enrique Torres throws a one-liner, or whatever his name is, New Falcon.
Right.
And you're like, I don't know what the scene is doing. Okay, now we're going somewhere else.
Yeah. That was problematic.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, well. I guess they can't all be winners.
They can't. I mean, Thunderbolts is good.
I mean, you keep tossing them out till they are, though. I mean, eventually your dart's going to hit the center at least once.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's kind of what Iron Man 1 was, and I feel like that's what Thunderbolts was again. And Fantastic Four is reviewing well, so yeah. But
I'm actually excited for that.
I am as well.
Got my tickets for Thursday.
I think I'm seeing it this weekend, and if we get a really like sincere dad moment with Pedro Pascal, I'm probably going to cry at that one too.
Right.
But I kind of speaking of like weird things of going back and gimmicking as a writer, Iron Man 1 was a really wild choice, and if you lived through the 2000s and you saw superhero movies at that point, you had Blade 1 and then what felt like 15,000 shotgun blasts at the screen. You're like, all right, we got Brandon Roth as Superman doing nothing for 3 hours, and Christian Bale's Batman was all right. X-Men 1 had us, and X-Men 2 was kind of like, and then we get Iron Man, which just, it is this lightning in the bottle moment. And then so much so that Iron Man, who at the point was being written out of the Avengers, his solo series got canceled. Marvel didn't scramble. It's like, all right, we need to make Iron Man in our comics more like Robert Downey Jr.
Right.
And yeah, I think at this moment where now you're almost gimmicking your comic based off of what came after it. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I would imagine there was a surge of new fans and whatnot because they saw Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. So then, now we're gonna go back and look at the comic and like, that's not Iron Man. Like, how many people that I know personally, they were like, oh my God, did you see that? This is how Iron Man would. No, I mean, not really.
Yeah.
Like, but do I correct them like that? And was it Supergirl? I got a lot of Supergirl stuff, or any of the CW characters. When people would ask me questions like, "Oh, you like DC? Like, wasn't this awesome? Like this is how blah blah was made." And I was like, "Sure."
Yeah. I'm happy that you're happy.
Right.
That was something that happened a lot with like Oliver Queen and Arrow after the show, because like after the season, especially everyone thought he was much more darker, grittier, like almost a little bit of like a
dude. He was killing people in season 1. He was outright killing people.
Yeah, we thought like he was like
failed this.
Yep.
Yeah. Everyone was very hardline, very abusive to his family. Like, no, that's a TV show. Oliver Queen in the show loves Speedy. Like Arsenal was like literally his like favorite boy.
Yep.
Like he's going to shoot around. He's going to shoot Solomon Grundy in the knee and then sit him down, talk about Solomon Grundy's feelings. That's Oliver Queen. Like he's very much a therapist with a bow and arrow.
Right. Listen, I still draw him with the classic Robin Hood hat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like anytime, like I think I've had two people ask me. Well, one person asked me for Green Arrow drawing, and I drew one on my own, and both of them were like the OG, pointy beard, Oliver Queen, and the pointy hat. Like, because, I thought it meant CW. It's like, well, you didn't tell me, and this is the one I like. This is the one I like. So.
I mean, if I was, hey DC, if you're watching, I doubt anyone is, but if you are, and I was given the chance to write Green Arrow, I love it. But also, I rarely want to write it where they like the waxed mustache and goatee is part of the costume. So when he's like in a board meeting, it's just a normal goatee. It's his disguise. It's waxing.
So Clark Kent with his and Oliver Queen with his
in the boardroom. It's the unkept mustache, so it just hangs down like Fu Manchu.
Exactly. It's just like a handlebar mustache. Yeah.
So when Green Arrow hears danger, he runs into the other room and waxes his mustache.
Exactly. Yeah.
Suddenly he's
right. And listen, they show scenes, in the comic where Superman would go into the phone booth. You know what I mean? And Batman, you see him putting on his boots and his gloves. You're going to show the suiting up one of Oliver Queen. It's just a zoom in close on the mirror.
Exactly. It's 3 panels. It's him putting his fingers into wax, going down the bowstring, and then going across his mustache.
Right.
And crime has a new enemy.
Right.
Yes, that I'd
read that book.
And that's kind of it kind of getting into like I guess another writing gimmick you can do is reinventing your own character in some way, doing your own spin on the character. Because if you're writing your own story, you don't really necessarily need to worry about that. But working in comics, even if you're independent, there's a chance where you might want to pick up something that's currently in Creative Commons. Like you can do, if you anyone right now, if they want to, can write their own Green Hornet comic. And if they wanted to, can write their own Green Gatsby, who can write their own Dracula. That's what I'm doing. And so perhaps we might take some time to reinvent the character, put a spin on it. That's kind of something that happens with my favorite examples in Matt Fraction's Hawkeye. We see, it's still the same Hawkeye, but it's not because of the time spent to focus on the character. And, we get the panel of him downing a full pot of coffee or taking time to fiddle with his hearing aid.
Is that the leisure suit mafia?
Yes, yeah. Yeah. Or the tracksuit mafia, yeah.
Tracksuit mafia, that's what it was.
It's so good.
Oh my gosh, it's such an amazing storyline.
It's a really good storyline, but it is something where you spend time getting to deal with the character of Hawkeye and how Matt Fraction perceives him and how he wants to put his stamp on the character. And it is kind of this idea of not quite jaded, not quite adrenaline junkie, just kind of a guy who is perhaps had a little too much adrenaline in his life, but now trying to do his best with and really dealing with the mafia and hey guys, I was a circus assassin for 15 years. What are you trying to do here?
Yeah. And I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes any sense. Actually, that does bring up a great question, though. It's almost like, did Matt Fraction say, I have a totally cool idea for Hawkeye? What if he was this laid-back guy who doesn't want any trouble, and trouble keeps coming to him, and he knows how to shoot a bow and arrow? Or was Matt Fraction I've just had this idea about a guy who's really good at something, and he's just laid back, and Marvel's why don't you do something with Hawkeye? And he goes home and he thinks about it, and he's okay, I think I can make that work. There's times when I'm wondering which one came first.
Could you sub in a different Avenger into said storyline?
Yeah, totally.
Would it still make sense?
Yeah, the Vision's I'm just a normal guy. I mean, I'm a robot and all that, but really I'm just a normal guy. And then there's these weird guys dressed in tracksuits. And what does that have to do with me? I'm a robot. I mean, if you actually thought about it for a while, you could probably make it work. Right. And then it's really interesting because Vision's different from Hawkeye. So do you remember the fourth Die Hard movie? Actually, nobody remembers that movie. Okay, it's the one where the hackers shut down all the power grids and stuff, and John McClane and Justin what's his face have to go and find him. The whole basis for that movie was an article that somebody wrote about what happens hackers can crack the mainframe or whatever they do.
Mhm.
And someone was like, that sounds like a total Die Hard movie, and just kind of wrote it based on that article. Like all these alternative takes on people aren't necessarily someone trying to be different. It's just someone had an idea and they had access to an existing character, and they just they molded it around the character and kind of made it their own. It's fascinating to me. It could happen with any story to any character.
That's kind of like these writing gimmicks of writers putting this unique spin or this unique twist on a character, and it perhaps ends up turning into a side series, because a lot of these people were like, it's an Elseworld tale, or it's a side thing where we're not the Uncanny X-Men or the Astonishing X-Men, because it's Joss Whedon had an idea for like, what if X-Men were actually like this? It was really good. And then you get the visual aspect of that, where now artists, like every time like a new artist takes on something, like you'll get the reference sheet and you'll get the Bible, but usually every year or so, every reboot, they're like, all right, what's the new costume for this character? And the artist is like, well, I want to do something like this. And that's how we get like so many costume changes or refreshes.
My favorite comment when a new creative team comes on is like, oh, we're reinventing how you feel about this. We're taking it back to basics. It's one of the ones that I'm like, I really don't want to. I don't want to hear the friggin' origin all over again.
Yeah, no, it's like, oh, you want to do, that's literally saying, I want to do that thing that you've already seen done before.
Right, 47 times.
Yeah,
we don't need to see Kal-El fall to Kansas. Like having him start off and say like he just lost a fight. Fantastic.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you're already sucked in. Like it's so funny that trailer that we saw with him colliding on the icy floor in the North Pole. We had no idea that was the first scene in the movie. And suddenly you're like, who can do that to Superman? Gotcha. So,
yeah. And that's kind of like, and you might be wondering, like, how is this a gimmick? Well, a gimmick by definition is anything unique or different you can do with what you're doing to get interested in, to build property. And sometimes those come off as being gimmicky, or as to like this is weird and standalone and doesn't really relate to anything. Or if you do it well, now it's, you put in your spin on something, you're doing a creative take on something. Like doing alternate covers, like doing weird stuff at signings. We kind of ran the full gamut here. We do have some unrelated questions before we get to wrapping up for the night, since we've actually I felt like a pretty good job of just rambling for an hour.
That is what we're good at.
Yeah, exactly. And this comes from Rory. We're getting back to our roots of just being the team that is we go on one aside and then follow it for an hour before coming back. Yeah. Do you guys feel like all major comics and movies are becoming an amalgamation? Like it's all the same or getting worse? A year ago or 6 months ago, I would have agreed to you. Like peak Captain America: Brave New World, coming off of Eternals, and I kind of forget what else was in there. Quantumania, the Snyderverse, yes. But I will think. I think Gunn getting back to going to DC and saying like, well, yeah, you guys forgot the fact that DC Comics are about having like hopeful characters, so that's what we're going to do, and that already makes it standalone. Because it felt like with the Snyderverse, DC is just trying to egg on Marvel's saying of being like, we're kind of grounded, but we're doing like fantastical grounding, and because of that, we're going to get really dark and geopolitical. And we're like,
which is all right. Marvel's doing what?
Yeah, and then you get like what Marvel found out they really only have Doctor Strange and Logan. Is what if we did genre pieces wearing like capes as a hat, essentially? Where what if we did a horror movie like I'm starting to lighten up on Multiverse of Madness, because it was Sam Raimi horror movie. It was Evil Dead with magic. I'm like, oh right, yeah. And when you get Brave New World is going to haunt my mind forever, because I like anything Big Gold. But then you get Thunderbolts, which is a psychological. It's an A24 film or A21 film, wherever it is.
Really? A24.
A24, yeah. It's an A24 film wearing superheroes as a hat. We're going to have a 90-minute character piece with some action in it, but we're talking about depression, guys.
Yeah. Huh.
And
Right.
you had, and so, and it kind of it's the same thing of like we're doing it. We're doing a drama piece. You're doing independent cinema with superheroes as a hat, right? And so, Fantastic Four. We'll see how that turns out. So I think you kind of get the idea of right of that we're talking about of if you're a writer and you're putting your own unique spin on things, you're making its own unique gimmick of it. Like you could say that Logan was using Western as a gimmick, and that's what made it work so well. Thunderbolts used character drama as a gimmick, and that's what made it work so well. I would say one of the many problems I have with Brave New World is the fact that it felt so cobbled together and didn't have its own unique identity or focus. It was just, we know these things work in superhero movies, so we're going to slam it together and make a 1997 Power Rangers movie with Anthony Mackie as the lead.
Ouch. Yeah. Huh.
No, I think the new Fantastic Four looks like every AI dream of Fantastic Four. we're gonna do classic, like this is our friggin' keywords, right? Classic, vintage, Fantastic Four, send. You know what I mean? That's what it seems like to me. But I don't like AI art, but that really did sell me. Like the idea of like the brighter costumes and the more retro-y style. And whatnot. I'm excited for it. Just saying.
Yeah, me too. I feel like are things getting better or worse? Weirdly enough, it really depends on who's calling the shots in the creative seat. Because I mean, when it comes to the movies, and I'm not just talking about movies, but like we'll talk about the movies. I really appreciated the fact that Kevin Feige and everyone over at Marvel realized they were off track and they took a break. And we just had Deadpool and Wolverine last year as a one-off. It was almost like you could tell they were like, oh no, we need to stop, back off and figure out our course because I think we've lost our way. Versus the DCU, which was like, let's just keep making movies and hopefully nobody will notice that these all universally suck, right? But apparently people did. I mean, and people are saying Dwayne Johnson was horrible. And Black Adam, I'm like, it wasn't that bad, was it? But apparently everyone thought so. It was just like, what was the creative direction of that whole thing? Was there actually one? And when I think about the comics I'm really enjoying today, I can tell that the creators are firmly in control of the story that they're telling. They're not doing it because it's their job. They had to phone it in, or they're trying their best, but you know what? They grew up reading comics, and so now they're doing comics. That's not great. But if they have a story they want to tell, and it has themes that resonate, and they have a strong grasp of character, then I'm actually encouraged. I'm actually really enjoying Ryan North's run on Fantastic Four. I love everything Tom King does because those guys really understand the characters they're working with, and they understand the mediums that they're working with, and they swing wide and they do pretty well, I think. So I'm never really worried about the industry tanking or things getting worse and worse. I think sometimes, yes, but sometimes you get some good people into the creative chair and they still can do some pretty cool things. So
I think we're kind of beyond the point where like one single creative or one single thing can like truly kill it, where it's going to be like a series of bad like investments done by everyone involved, where that might be a thing. But I mean, kind of my hope with Fantastic Four is that like kind of what we're seeing with the trailers and the focus on it being like, you know, it's the first, we're returning to the first family of comics. Is like, is this going to be a family drama or a family comedy? And that's going to be the focus. And then Galactus is the backdrop to that. Because I think that would make it sell really well. Is like, are you going to leave this movie really caring about Reed Richards and Sue Storm and how they're getting thrown into this strange new world and worrying about how their kid's going to grow up being, you know, potentially superpowered in a world that that's not ready for that. And like, because if that's the case, and like, I think it'll do great. But if it's just we have like 15 minutes of family stuff, and then it's 90 minutes of them fighting Galactus, going from one scene to the next, and like we don't know what happens or what purpose any of this is serving, or like, all right. And yeah, I hope as well. So, and I can't think of the example of it. All comes down to your commitment to the story, and I think also kind of a takeaway from this is the gimmick, even if it is just a marketing thing, like alternate covers or foil, like is that in service to the creative image as a whole? Like, I think Death Metal's gonna work so well is because the visuals are in service of the creative vision of the story. And in Black Adam, Dwayne Johnson had in his contract that he can't lose a fight in a DC movie. I'm like, that is not service to the story. Like, that's literally you need to lose a fight to build drama, because that's the whole hero's journey, is the false death.
Wow.
Yeah, like that was a whole thing.
Yeah,
he wanted a sequel or whatever where he fought Superman, but now Superman can't beat you. Like,
yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a big Black Adam fan. Like, comic wise.
You shouldn't leave the Black Adam movie wondering. I wonder what Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate would do in another movie. That'd be your takeaway from Black Adam. It's like, Dr. Fate was really great. Yeah.
I mean, I like what's the dude? He's in Leverage. The guy who played Hawkman. I liked him. He was cool. You know what I mean? Pierce Brosnan is Dr. Fate. He was cool.
I don't think we'll ever know.
No, we won't.
Yeah. Oh. I mean, that's all. We might be, because James Gunn said that if actors from the DCEU want to return and reprise roles or take on new roles, as long as they're willing to work with the direction and the story,
right,
they're down. So, like, they've apparently been in meetings about Henry Cavill maybe coming back as Zod.
No kidding.
Yeah.
What's weird is James Gunn, the new head of the whole shebang.
Yeah,
he's taking memos left and right, and probably not from actors who are like, "Hey, we'll do anything you say. Just please let us come back in." Yeah, I've got more important things to do with.
I don't know. I would say he kind of sort of won me over, and I know that, like, right out the gate, I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like James Gunn messing with the DC universe. DC is my favorite thing, right?" But I watched Creature Commandos.
Oh yeah.
Is that good?
I loved Creature Commandos.
Yes. Okay.
A little different take, definitely not for children, but it was. I don't know how I'm going to feel about season 2, but like season 1 just had me right out the gate.
Yeah, that's kind of thing too, where like almost as a gimmick, it's an adult comedy, like in the style of like early Rick and Morty or South Park, whatever, but wearing superheroes as a hat, where. And each character within Creature Commandos has their own unique gimmick, and that's something that DC's done really well about giving characters gimmicks. And then just smashing them together, and you get, I mean, what was it? What's his name? Mr. Atomic. Is that his name? The radioactive guy? The one voiced by is it Mr. Atomic, or is it Mr. something, but Mr. Phosphorus? Dr. Phosphorus. Voiced by Alan Tudyk. Like his take on the character, like,
I'm sorry, that dude can do no wrong.
Yeah,
I know, right? Holy cow!
You ever see Resident Alien? That is hilarious.
Yes.
Oh,
will always be wash for me. So
it's so funny.
Huh.
All right. We are out of time. Let me grab our counters to see what we're doing next week. So I'll let Brent and Jose ramp while I find it.
Hey, please. I got to get on the front end too of this.
That's right. Buy our books.
I don't want to just be with guest star Brett Larson.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Next week is plotting.
Guest star Brett Larson.
If time allows.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Plotting. I can do that.
Yeah.
What is it? Plotting?
Plotting. So we'll be talking about
yes.
I'm gonna try and bring out the murder board. So yeah. Let's talk about your pre-write process. How much do you pre-write? How much should you pre-write? Is there a rule? Spoilers, there's not. It's whatever you want to do that you find works. But I'll bring out the murder board as a visual example. And we'll get into the art of plotting and pacing and how to actually string together a story over 22 pages, over 6 issues, over a year into something that gets turned into hardcover.
I'm so glad you call it that, because I've had people look at me weird when I call it a murder board.
No, yeah. It's really, people need to watch more Law and Order, because that's what it is. Yeah.
Or that one episode of It's Always Sunny with Charlie and the kids.
Charlie. Yeah, I have a friend who goes to every convention in the Northwest cosplaying as Murderboard Charlie.
That's awesome.
So he brings out like a board and takes it around with him, and we'll take photos of people doing that. Yeah. So we'll be back next week with that. I guess takeaway: gimmicks can be great if they're in service to the story, and they do work if they're done well.
Right.
Eyes wide open.
Okay. Exactly.
I mean, there is a pretty good population of people that like the gimmick covers, that like, what I mean, the one book with 19 covers and people have to get all of them. Like, there are those people out there, the collectors that have to collect them all. And I'm not quite that guy, but man, if there's something flashy, like I said, those DC for Year of the Villain had the acetone covers, and I'm pretty sure I have all of them.
Yeah.
Like, they got me hook, line, and sinker on those.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll be back next week, but until that time,
make mine
Silverline.
Silverline.
Hi, I'm Dave Dorman. Make mine Silverline.